Hello, and welcome to the Order Bubble and Inventory Burndown webinar. My name is Patrick Summers, and I'm the Vice President of Delivery at 4R Systems, and I will be monitoring this session. This presentation is the fifth webinar in a series of webinars presented by the 4R Client Services team. This webinar will be recorded and will be available on our website following the presentation, along with all of our previously recorded webinar sessions. As a little note before we get started, all of the phone lines are currently muted and will remain muted throughout the presentation. We will be taking questions via the chat feature on the right-hand side of your screen throughout the webinar, and the questions will be answered at the end of the session. We will try to answer as many questions as possible at that time allows. And now, I would like to introduce you to your presenter, Vijay Venkatraman, Associate Client Manager. Vijay?
Good morning. Thank you, Pat, for the introduction. As Pat mentioned, my name is Vijay Venkatraman, and I am an Associate Client Manager here at 4R. I'm here to talk to you about an analysis we generate for our clients that is useful in estimating some of the impact 4R's solution can introduce to the system of our customers. This analysis is called the Order Bubble and Excess Inventory Report. Over the next several slides, we will define each metric, show you how each metric is calculated, the situations where 4R will provide this information to our customers, how our customers utilize this information, and a couple of examples to highlight how 4R's solution may shift inventory. We will start by discussing the order bubble. 4R defines the order bubble as new or additional orders that are generated due to a change in the system. This occurs when the system change results in higher reorder points at the SKU store than previously anticipated. Specifically, when this new reorder point is greater than the store's current inventory position. The inventory position we consider is the store's current on hand plus whatever units are on order or in transit. The calculation is performed at the SKU store level, and we determine the number of cases that are needed and multiply that by the case size in order to get the total units that are to be ordered. Depending on the application, the order bubble will either be expressed as an absolute total or an incremental change. Typically, if we are rolling out our solution to a new customer, we will give them the absolute impact of the new reorder points. However, if it's an existing customer just receiving a minor change internally, we will typically express it as a relation to what would originally be ordered under the previous reorder points. The other side of the inventory impact coin is excess inventory. 4R defines excess inventory as inventory units that are more than a case size above the reorder point. 4R's expectation is that when the inventory falls below a reorder point, only a case size will be ordered. So the maximum inventory level we would expect at a SKU store is the reorder point plus a case size minus 1, which we will call the peak expected inventory level. And any units above this peak inventory level we call excess inventory units. And as with the order bubble, we will express the excess inventory in terms of an absolute change or a relative change depending on the application. So when are these necessary? Both are estimated when system changes create churn in our reorder points that were not previously expected. Examples of this include when new services are rolled out, such as store replenishment or our promotion support. And production changes are implemented, such as software enhancements and updates and ICOS changes, to identify cases where 4R's reorder points are not being followed, and to track the sell-through of excess inventory burn-off over time. How does this information help our customers? Listed below are several ways our customers use this information. They use this information, especially the order bubble, to determine if their distribution centers contain enough inventory to support the change, to evaluate the cost of initial orders when working with an open-to-buy constraint, to identify stores that may be ordering beyond the 4R reorder point and thus aren't complying with the 4R reorder point, to see how much initial excess has been sold off over time, and to determine whether or not to go through with a change if we were doing like a what-if analysis. So the first example I'd like to talk to is how an order bubble and excess inventory can result from inventory shifting amongst stores. In this example, we have SKU X in stores 1 and stores 2. SKU X has a case size of 1. Under the previous settings, store 1 had a reorder point of 5 and store 2 had a reorder point of 3. Now with the system changing the system, the new reorder point in store 1 is 3 and the new reorder point in store 2 is 5. So essentially the reorder points have switched in this example. As a result, there is now an order of 2 units in store 2 when previously there was no orders in store 2. And due to the decrease in reorder point in store 3, there is now an excess of 2 units in store 1. So our takeaways here are that while the old and new reorder points both target an aggregate inventory level of 8 units, there's now an excess of 2 units in one store and an order bubble of 2 in another store due to the change in ROPs due to the system change. And when the new ROPs are introduced, there will be a one-time increase in orders, in this example 2 units, and lingering excess that will take some time to burn off. The second example I'd like to talk to is a shifting in inventory amongst SKUs. For this example, we're looking at hypothetically a store 1, which carries SKU X and SKU Y. So SKU X originally had a reorder point of 6, and SKU Y originally had a reorder point of 3. Under the previous settings, the order of SKU X was 1, and there were no orders of Y. Under the new reorder point, or under the new system, the reorder points of SKU X went up to 11, and the reorder point of SKU Y went down to 2, resulting in an order of 6 units of SKU X and 1 unit of excess of SKU Y. So a net increase of 5 units on order and $5 in orders and $5 in excess inventory. So our takeaway here is that while the old and new reorder points both target the same total inventory at cost, which is $21, the change in reorder points is resulting in the inventory to be allocated differently amongst the SKUs, creating a one-time order and a unit of excess. So in summary, 4R generates the order bubble and excess inventory report when there's a change in the system that is going to result in an unanticipated change in the reorder points. 4R's customers use this information to better understand the immediate impact of these changes. While the overall target level may not change, an order bubble and excess inventory could still exist due to these changes. And with that, thank you for your time, and I will take any questions you might have.
All right, thank you very much, Vijay. Appreciate that. What we're going to do now is open up for some questions, as Vijay just mentioned. By doing so, we're going to keep the line muted. There's a chat box to the right of the webinar on GoToWebinar. If you have any questions, just post those there, and I'll pose those to Vijay. We'll try to answer as many as we can. So now I'm going to pause for a minute. If you have any questions, please post them in the chat room. Okay, I think we have our first question. Vijay, you mentioned a couple of times that this report is run to quantify the impact of changes that were not previously expected. Wondering what the difference is between expected and unexpected changes.
Okay, well, thank you for that question. So we would say that expected changes are changes that are due to upcoming peaks in seasonality or changes in the supply chain parameters, which are more, routine, and they're actually anticipated. If you're approaching a peak selling season, you would expect the reorder points to start to ramp up to produce more orders. Same thing if you're exiting a peak selling season. And if certain supply chain parameters have changed, such as lead times or review periods, that the reorder points would react accordingly. Unexpected changes are changes that are due to maybe a what if you're asking us to test what a change in ICOS can do to your reorder points and orders, or if we have updated our software or enhanced our software to and are planning on installing it, the impact of the new version of that software. And those are, changes that we would say aren't anticipated, but we want to measure the impact of them.
Okay, thank you, Vijay. I think we have one other question here. So the question is, how do you project and track the excess inventory burn down?
Okay, and then again, thank you for that question. So typically when we roll out our solution to a client, we will see what the initial excess inventory is, and based on forecasted demand for the next year or so, we project how that excess inventory is going to sell off in quarterly increments. So basically, if we tell you that you have X amount of excess inventory, we'll tell you over the next 4 quarters how the excess is going to burn down. And we track it by simply seeing where we are at the start and tracking the sales of those excess units over time to see if we met our target each quarter.
Okay. All right, thanks again, Vijay. So at this moment, I'm not sure we have any further questions from the audience, but we'll hang on for 10 or 15 seconds to see if any further questions come through. Okay, if you have any further questions or you think of anything regarding this webinar, this will be posted on the website. Certainly we're open to you contacting us directly to pose any further questions. Wait a minute, I think we have one more question. Hold on a second. Could you give some real-world examples as to what changes would trigger an order bubble?
Sure. Thank you for that question. So changes that would trigger an order bubble, one example would be if you are customers considering changing the stores that are assigned to a particular DC or moving stores around from one DC to another. They might ask, what's the new order bubble going to be for that DC now that these stores are going to be moved, so that they can assess whether or not they have enough inventory to support that change. Another example would be if a customer wants to, increase sales in certain departments and segments. They could ask us to make changes to increase inventory, which would produce more orders for those items in those departments, and our solution would determine which stores, based on various factors, should get those additional units, and as a result, there would be an order bubble generated.
Okay. All right, Vijay, thank you again, and I'd like to say thank you all for attending this webinar. We will have another one coming up in March, which is through our client delivery team. Reminder that all of these webinars are posted on our website at 4rsystems.com/webinars. You can see the full schedule as well as those we've done in the past. I'd like to say thank you all for joining and look forward to having you join us in a future 4R Systems educating retailers to be more profitable. Thank you very much.